The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe it.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
Through the public charge rule, President Trump's administration is reinforcing the ideals of self-sufficiency and personal responsibility, ensuring that immigrants are able to support themselves and become successful here in America. Our rule generally prevents aliens who are likely to become a public charge from coming to the United States or remaining here and getting a green card. Public charge is now defined in a way that ensures the law is meaningfully enforced and that those who are subject to it are self-sufficient. Importantly, this final rule has no impact on humanitarian-based immigration programs for refugees and asylees. No impact on refugees or asylees. And it clarifies the exemption for trafficking victims and victims of domestic violence. This rule will cover, for USCIS, almost 400,000 people a year whose applications to become legal permanent residents will include a meaningful analysis of whether they're likely to become a public charge or not. I do not think by any means we're ready to take anything off the statute of liberty.
Oh, my God. America officially has a cover charge. Oh, my God. All right, everybody. So even if you're here legally, they're going to look at your income status, and they're going to make sure you have first, last, and security deposit before you get your green card renewed. This is like the most amazing portion of the culture war. Okay? This is absolute madness. This is crazy. This is people who are married to American citizens. There are people out there that, you know, you're married to somebody who immigrated here, and you have signed the form saying that you are the official sponsor. You've already demonstrated that you've got at least $41,000 in income to support, your coupledom or whatever you want to call it. Well, now, even if your spouse is sponsored by you and you've demonstrated that you got the cash to support that person who doesn't have a work permit is now going to have to demonstrate that they can earn $41,000 a year, or they're going to be deemed a likely dependent. Now, if you don't have a work permit, but you're sponsored and you work, that's illegal. If you don't have a work permit, but you have to show income, how the F do you do that? This is another attack, and this is on legal immigrants. This is really sick, and they're going to do it by executive order. Okay, this particular public charge crap goes back to 1882. In order for the United States to allow a denial of a visa to anybody who's likely to become a public charge, without ever defining what a public charge is. This was about the Chinese invasion. You know, and the Chinese were so detrimental to our society that, hey, we have railroads now. You know what I mean? This is just so sick. But since 1999, immigration officers have adopted the guiding principle that a public charge is someone, quote, primarily dependent on the government for subsistence. Now, Congress has made it illegal for an immigrant to get welfare. So that's a non-starter. Immigrants don't get welfare. What we're talking about here is legal immigration. What we're talking about, and I just want to say, Ken Cuccinelli, the Cooch is an acting director. So is the Bureau of Prisons an acting director. And by the way, on the Epstein debacle, the warden of the Manhattan Correctional has resigned, and two staffers are on leave. Now, I will tell you that there are a bunch of conspiracies out there. You know, yesterday I was trying to explain to you, we have to go slow on breaking news like this. You have to go slow on shooters. You have to go slow on conspiracy theories, because obviously Jeffrey Epstein was involved in a conspiracy. Okay? He was. There was a conspiracy indictment. And so they're hunting for Ghislaine Maxwell now. They're hunting for her. Everybody's got to find her. Everybody's got to identify the people who helped him traffic these girls. Everybody. The police are going to have to do it. The civil attorneys are going to have to do it. You know, the victims have moved into the civil arena. I mean, you got the New York, SDNY in New York. They're still, looking at the conspiracy indictment, and they're trying to find all the people that enabled him. So please go slow. I will say I got a ginormous amount of email yesterday about, articles in the New York Post. The New York Post. I know. But it quotes a friend. It quotes a friend of John Gotti, dearly departed Gotti, right? It quotes a friend of his saying that when he used to visit John Gotti, he knew that there were tons of guards on the take, and that if you had some money, you could get anything you wanted. In fact, John Gotti got Peter Luger's, which is a very famous steakhouse in New York. It's delicious. It's unbelievable. It's over the top, and it's very freaking expensive. But that he got Peter Luger's delivered to him whenever he wanted it, a la Goodfellas, right? He's got some lobsters, and, here's some wine. Now we can eat. You know what I mean? And a very good system for cutting the garlic. Very good. Razor thin so it would dissolve in the olive oil. So that's what that's what his friend is saying, and that Epstein could not have killed himself without somebody bringing him the I don't know, rope or sheets or whatever. And no one knows. This is I heard. This is a story where John Gotti's friend heard from a friend that, come on, we got to go slow here, because this is the most disgusting friend that Trump has ever had. And we want to make sure that whatever bubbles up, whatever information becomes known, knowable, and factually checks out, that it is something that America understands is true, that America understands, Trump knew about, that he was, watching while all this was going on, that it was this is the kind of thing. And if it was Dershowitz, if it was, what's his name, Richardson from New Mexico, where Epstein did have a mansion, the Zorro Ranch, still does. So he was the governor of New Mexico, and wouldn't it make sense that, maybe he visited one of the billionaires? And I don't know, but you can't just put this crap out there. Right now, what we got is a culture war filled with conspiracy theories by the President of the United States. There are countless hours that could be filled with these conspiracy theories that Trump has poured into the brains of QAnon, poured into the brains of maggots, poured into the brains of Cult 45, poured into the brains of Al-Qaeda, the base. He was the original Papers, Please. He was the original birther, right? Vince Foster, Hillary Clinton had him killed. The Clintons killed Epstein. Ted Cruz's dad killed Kennedy. He loves murder. He's fascinated by murder. He's also fascinated by human trafficking. He's made up conspiracies about women in vans with tape around their mouth. He's taken scenes out of Day of the Soldado and, made them into like true stories with his crazy rantings. He says Joe Scarborough killed his intern. Antonin Scalia was murdered. He's a vaxxer. He says vaccinations cause autism. Hurricane Maria, he says only 6 to 18 people died. It's a lie that 3,000 people died. He said that, he saw Muslims celebrating the 9/11. He saw them dancing in the streets in New Jersey. You cannot see New Jersey from Trump Tower in Midtown Manhattan. But he saw it. They celebrated. The guy is full of garbage.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, The Randi Rhodes Show.
Would you also agree that Emma Lazarus's words etched on the Statue of Liberty, "Give me your tired, your poor," are also part of the American ethos?
They certainly are. Give me your tired and your poor who can stand on their own 2 feet and who will not become a public charge. That plaque was put on the Statue of Liberty at almost the same time as the first public charge law was passed. Very interesting timing.
Oh my God. Okay, so let's just think about Ken Cuccinelli's family and see whether or not they would have been allowed into the country. Yeah, I don't think they checked at Ellis Island for your bank balance. I don't think they did, Ken. I'm not really sure, but, I'm just going to say, as acting director of U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, and of course he's just acting, if these kind of Trump rules had always been in effect, I think the name Cuccinelli would have been enough to disqualify your ancestors from entering. You cannot run Ellis Island or immigration ports of entry like Studio 54. Although I will say, Steve Rubel never separated families. He just had bouncers. Do you know what I mean? Ellis Island, would have looked like Studio 54. They would have had velvet ropes and they would have had bouncers over there. They would have kept out the riffraff. This is a sick, sick administration. And they're only doing this because, it plays with Al-Qaeda. It plays with the base. It plays with Call 45. It plays with the maggots. It plays with QAnon. This is the sickest thing I've ever heard. And this is an executive order. This is not legislation. They have no authority to do this, by the way. Just keep that in mind, because you're going to see a lot of freaking lawsuits about this, because this is talking about legal immigration. This is talking about green card holders who will not be able to renew their green cards unless they can pay first, last, and security, but they're not allowed to work here. You know what I'm saying? This is such a ridiculous catch-22. This is such a dumb thing. This is all because he needs something to sell to his base, to agitate, to make them hate. He needs to feed that beast of hate that he has created. He needs to feed the ninth circle of hell. This guy is dangerous. Doesn't anybody explain to him that this paranoid, crap that he peddles to his people is dangerous? Doesn't anybody say that to him? Doesn't anybody explain to him that as president of the United States, he speaks to the whole world on our behalf? Doesn't anybody tell him that his words have caused people to do heinous and ugly things like murder Mexicans in El Paso? Doesn't anybody tell him that this conspiracy theory that he peddled about Muslims dancing after 9/11 and that Muslims hate America and that Islam hates America? Doesn't anybody tell him that caused 3 men in Kansas, no less, to go and try and blow up a complex, a little apartment complex where Somali immigrants live? I mean, doesn't anybody explain to him, sir, you're causing death and carnage? Didn't he say something about the carnage ends here when he was being sworn in? Didn't he say that? This is so sick. I can't even tell you. I mean, the man peddles so much garbage, so much crap. It's just unbelievable, He said Ted Cruz was born in Canada, and so therefore he's not an American citizen. He couldn't run for president. He said that Marco Rubio was also ineligible to run for president because of where he was born, except Marco Rubio was born in the United States, and Donald Trump's mother was not born in the United States. He says global warming is a Chinese hoax. He said there was white genocide going on in South Africa that was being conducted by black South African farmers. He had Kellyanne Conway saying that on freaking Fox News. He said the Access Hollywood tape was fake. He said that wind farms cause cancer. He said asbestos is a ruse. That mesothelioma doesn't really happen. I mean, he says the media is fake. What else is he going to say? I mean, the guy is unhinged. I don't know when anybody would get serious about the 25th Amendment, but, his cabinet, they're all acting. They're all acting. They're thespians. Acting. I mean, this is so sick. And now they're going to go after legal immigrants. I mean, if you applied these kinds of rules to housing developments, you would probably be in violation of civil rights Yeah. Okay, so at the dawn of his career, the government goes after Donald Trump and his freaking father for housing discrimination, and now he controls the government, and he's using it to make the whole country practice discrimination. What a great plan for America. The big melting pot that we are, which is really more like a salad bar than it is a melting pot. Nobody wants to, mold and meld. Everybody wants to be the carrot, and I want to be the cucumber, and you want to be the lettuce. But you can't have anything without an onion. You can't. It's the flavor. But I mean, so now it's official. America has an income minimum. We have a cover charge. Now, I pulled an explainer. It's in the homework, RandiRhodes.com. The homework, it's absolutely free. You can just have it every day to learn. And the best explainer is the one that's in there today. There was one in there yesterday. It was pretty good. But the one that's in there today is unbelievable because it actually spells out who and that this is sort of fantastical in this respect. They're looking into the future. Ken Cuccinelli and Donald Trump and DHS, the whole government is going to be peering into the future. I mean, this couldn't be any worse if they were using a magic 8-ball. Okay, this is just bizarro world. Not to see who gets welfare because immigrants are not entitled to and don't get welfare. No. So what they're doing is they're looking into the future to see who is likely to get any government services with a green card. They're looking into the freaking future. So you know what that means? That they're giving themselves the right to do, and this ought to send shockwaves into everybody's bloodstream. They're going to look at medical records of green card holders to see if any of them have chronic illnesses or if any of them have cancer or, any sort of diabetes, like a chronic illness like that, because or might be elderly or like 61 and over, because they want to see if those older immigrants are going to require long-term care. I swear to God, this explainer it's very specific and it's very easy to read. It's very understandable, but they are looking at, now, first, Congress has already barred most immigrants from using welfare. So that's not even a consideration, right? But they are going to consider prior use of anything. Even if when you applied for your green card, this is so sick. There's a thing called an application waiver, and some people, use it to not pay the application fee, and the government will grant you a waiver on the fee. If you had an application waiver, they're going to consider that prior government assistance, and they're going to try and deport you.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Well, I don't think it's fair to have the American taxpayer. It's about America first. I don't think it's fair to have the American taxpayer paying for people to come into the United States. So what we've done is institute what took place many, many years ago at our founding, virtually. But we are just reinstituting it, and I think it's long overdue. I am tired of seeing our taxpayer paying for people to come into the country and immediately go on to welfare and various other things. So I think we're doing it right.
He's a liar. You cannot, if you come into this, first of all, okay, first of all, he's talking about legal immigration in this rule change. That's number one. Number two, immigrants that come into this country are barred from using welfare. So that is a lie. Everybody needs to know that is a lie. People are sick of, the taxpayers are sick of people coming into this country and getting on welfare. That does not happen. It's just like, this is crazy. So what we're talking about is legal immigration, green card holders. And here's what the public charge rule change says. It says any prior use of any government benefit, any at all. It expands the definition of common government benefits. So you're talking about federal housing subsidy or Section 8 housing assistance or non-emergency Medicaid benefits. Now, they are accepting children under the age of 21. They're accepting the kids, they're accepting the kids who get CHIP, okay, the Children's Health Insurance Program. But this is your public charge would be triggered if you had received any benefit from the government, any benefit at all, including the application fee waiver. Someone previously applied for an application fee waiver and they were given an application fee waiver for their green card. You could now be denied, a visa. And then they're going to take into account likely future use of any benefit. Okay, so here are the criteria that they are now going to be looking at. And by them, I mean DHS, okay? I mean Ken Cuccinelli. This is crazy. This is absolute sickness. This is legal immigration we're talking about, completely legal. The age of the applicant, the age of the green card holder, okay? You will be denied if you are younger than the minimum age for full-time employment, under 18. You will be denied if you are older than the minimum early retirement age for Social Security purposes, so that's 61. Or any age where your ability to work is impacted. They're also going to look at your health. I mean, this reminds me of like freaking slave auctions. What are they going to do? Put you on a stump and make you open your mouth to see how many cavities you have, or if your teeth are in good shape? This is sick. But yes, they're going to scrutinize, DHS is going to scrutinize any medical condition and assess whether or not this condition could affect your ability to work in this country. They're looking at your family size. If you have children or any dependents living in the United States with you, that could, increase the likelihood of a visa denial. They're going to look at your skills. I don't know what this, this fantastical fantasy about, high-skilled workers is, because if you only allow high-skilled workers, who's going to, butcher the chickens, who's going to butcher the meat? That I don't know. But also, this thing with high-skilled workers, won't that drive down the paychecks of high-skilled workers in this country? But yes, they're going to determine whether an applicant has, quote, adequate education and skills to either obtain or maintain employment. This is going to be applied across the board whether or not the green card holder is authorized to work. There are so many green card holders in this country who aren't authorized to work. They don't have work permits. They're not allowed to work. So if they work, they're breaking the law. And then they're going to scrutinize you for your ability to work, even if you don't have a work permit, and make sure that you have a financial, a status that they like. They're going to, I swear to God, but beyond looking at the applicant's income and assets, they're going to assess, check this out, your credit score, your credit history, any financial liabilities, plus whether or not the applicant has private health insurance or enough resources to cover any foreseeable medical costs. This is everybody, right? I mean, how are they going to predict that somebody, in between 18 and 61 doesn't have a foreseeable medical cost in their future? How are they going to see that? Okay. Now, even if the applicant has never used government benefits in the past, and meets all of the above criteria to demonstrate low likelihood of using benefits in the future, they could still be blocked by an entirely Form I-944, not to be confused with Form I-864, which is called the Affidavit of Support. The Affidavit of Support is required for the person who is sponsoring you, like your husband or your wife, who has filled out that form, the I-864, that shows that he or she is able to provide at least $41,000 in change in income to support you. Okay, now you're going to have to show that you can support you, even if you are barred from working in the United States, by filling out Form I-864. If you don't have the ability to declare your self-sufficiency, you will be deported. You will not get a visa renewal. You will not get a green card renewal. And it doesn't matter if your sponsor can support. It doesn't matter if your sponsor is a billionaire. Okay, well, I guess it does, because you'll have the best lawyers. But it doesn't matter if your sponsor has already filled out the affidavit of support. Now you have to show that you are making 125% above the poverty line. So that's $41,150 for a couple with no children, $73,000 for a family of 5 or higher.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
The white supremacists think that Donald Trump is a white supremacist. So don't take a political candidate's comment, because that people don't really take a lot of credibility with what anybody says. I would just say, when you look at this kid in El Paso, he was saying similar things that President Trump has said about the invasion and all of this.
Yeah,
I'm the least racist person there is in the world.
Okay, so here's who's affected by this new public charge rule expansion, which, by the way, DHS has zero authority to implement. And that is why there will be multiple lawsuits brought. But it applies to the vast majority of applicants for green cards, permanent residency. That's what a green card is, okay? Any family relationship to a U.S. citizen or lawful permanent resident, we're talking about 800,000 green cards that were granted in 2016 alone, because that's the latest, most fresh data that DHS has. That's the last year, 2016. So we know we're talking about at least 800,000 people. And then if you look at sponsorship by an employer, you're looking at another 140,000 green cards that were granted that year. So for just 2016 alone, you're looking at 1 million people. Also that he can be the racist, the chief racist in this country. This is crazy. This is sick, sad, and dangerous, as we all know from El Paso. It's dangerous to keep feeding this beast, this ignorant, dumbass beast that thinks somehow, they believe in this, replacement thing. This is just, the people that are exempted are refugees, asylees, and individuals who've experienced domestic violence. That's it. So there's this entirely new income standard, credit score standard. There's this entirely new standard that's going to be applied to legal immigrants. Legal. I can't stress that enough. In this country. Not just their sponsors, who also previously had to demonstrate their ability to support the legal visa, the legal green card holder. And now it sets the household income threshold as high as 250% of the federal poverty guidelines. Now, if you're married, okay, and your spouse is a green card holder, I want you to know that half of all marriage green card applicants are going to be denied. That's 200,000 couples who are going to now have to face the future. They're going to look into the crystal ball, right? And they're going to have to decide whether they live, separately in two different countries now as they deport your spouse, or if you're going to leave the United States together. That's going to be a decision 200,000 couples are going to have to make. 56%, which is more than half of all family-based green card applicants, 56%, more than half, will be denied under this public charge requirement. More than 47% of legal immigrants with green cards are going to be deemed likely risks based on your health, your age, your ability to show that you make 250% of the income poverty level, and also it's 71% of applicants from Mexico and Central America will be affected. 69% of green card holders from Africa, and 52% of green card holders from Asia, but only 36%, but still a third of people from Europe, Canada, and Oceania. Now, what's really interesting is the largest group of visa overstays in this here country, Canada. Yeah. Pasty white people from Canada wearing Speedos on my beach right now. Mm-hmm. Now, they're also saying that a permanent resident used to be only able to be deported within the first 5 years of obtaining your green card, and only if you became a public charge based on the circumstances that existed before you got your green card. For example, if you were a healthy person and you got a green card and then you got into an accident and then you needed to emergency Medicaid because you were in the hospital, you wouldn't have been deportable. But now you are. This rule is set to go into effect on October 15th of this year. Mike in Tampa.
Hey, Randy. I wanted to talk about this public charge.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a bunch of crap, basically. I'd like to see them use that on corporate America. Like the oil industry, they're a public charge. Look at climate change. Or the pharmaceutical industry, they're a public charge. And the opiate crisis. I mean, it's self-sufficiency crap. I don't know. They just want to make America only accessible to rich people.
Yeah, I mean, the unwashed masses, we're a problem for them. We really are. We're just a problem. We get sick. We want health insurance. We go to the hospital when people shoot us. Every single person who was injured in El Paso, every single person who was shot in El Paso, because if they didn't have their own private health insurance to cover the costs of putting them back together again, because Donald Trump actually, exacerbated, a racist to take deadly action against, immigrants, they're going to be deported on top. So this is why I say all of a sudden I understand the expression adding insult to injury. John in Minnesota.
I just wanted to say that Donald Trump's grandfather came here and would not meet those guidelines at all. And he begged to stay in this country because he left, I think it was Bavaria, to escape conscription. And, his mother also, it's kind of up in the air as to whether she was here legally also, although you can't really, I guess they can't really determine that one way or the other. But He is just so hypocritical, and I think that what concerns me isn't so much what he does, but the fact that people love him, his base. They absolutely love him, and you can, stand on your head and, give them facts and, from dawn to nighttime, and they don't care. I mean, we have created a monster, really. It's just frightening. And he thinks that he can rule us by making executive orders like he's some kind of king when, as you pointed out, all this immigration law is very, very complicated, and how it's going to impact people, he could care less. I mean, it's just ignorance and stupidity on top of more ignorance and stupidity. And that's all I want to say.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, look, all he's trying to do is create fear and chaos, because when people are afraid and everything is chaotic, people can steal from you. And that is the desire. That is the goal. Okay?
Right.
This is all about the very, very, very wealthy.
Right.
Controlling everybody who isn't in that class of person.
But he throws the immigrants, especially black and brown people, as meat to his ignorant base, who have been so propagandized by the media. I mean, he's the creation of the media himself. He's a little monster, and we need to get rid of him. I don't know how they're going to do it, but I'm all for it.
Well, I think Texas is in play this year, and that's that's 38 electoral votes, my friend, 38. So that's
I know. I think this is going to backfire in his face.
Well, it better, because I will say Mitch McConnell's Kentucky and West Virginia, these people are on public assistance for so long that they don't even consider it public assistance. So if he's going after legal people who are on public assistance, aren't they next?
Right.
Aren't they next? I mean, he's just going to say we can't afford welfare, we can't afford food stamps, we can't afford Medicaid, we can't afford everybody's going to lose what little bit they have, and these 1/3 of the people of the United States who support him, you can't worry about them. You're right, they're brainwashed, they're in for the rest of their lives. History will not judge them kindly. But when they lose their little bit of Social Security or disability checks, when they don't come anymore, they'll be sorry.
Mary had a little lamb.
The false. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me. Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
President Trump has reacted to Epstein's death in what is sadly a very unsurprising way. He is spreading a conspiracy theory that the Clintons had Epstein killed. Let that sink in. This would be like Gerald Ford or Jimmy Carter or Ronald Reagan claiming that LBJ had Kennedy killed. Nonetheless, because this is Donald Trump, this is what we've come to expect. Because this isn't the first, no, it's not the second or even the third time the president has made baseless claims without regard for the consequences of his rhetoric. He's also suggested Senator Ted Cruz's dad was involved in JFK's assassination, that Justice Antonin Scalia was murdered because a pillow was found over his face, that Joe Scarborough may have been involved in his intern's death, that there was something fishy about the suicide of Vince Foster, a former Clinton aide. Don't forget, he started the birther movement. He went so far as to offer President Obama $5 million for his college records and passport. Trump raised questions about Senator Marco Rubio's eligibility to be president because his parents were not born in the U.S. Trump conveniently ignored the fact that his own mother wasn't born in the U.S. Trump also raised similar eligibility questions about Senator Ted Cruz because he was born in Canada. President Trump went on to claim that President Obama wiretapped Trump Tower.
Oh, yeah.
His own Justice Department publicly said this did not happen. Trump claimed he saw and read about Muslim Americans celebrating on 9/11. Absolutely no footage or news articles have ever been found to support this. He said he lost the popular vote because millions of people voted illegally.
Oh, right.
A commission he put together to find this widespread fraud never found any. He's argued that global warming is a hoax created by the Chinese.
Yeah.
The president leaves out that he sought to build a seawall at his Scottish golf course to, quote, protect from global warming and its effects. He claims vaccines cause autism and that noise from windmills can cause cancer. He's denied that 3,000 people died in Puerto Rico due to Hurricane Maria.
Right.
And the president has adamantly denied that Russia interfered in the 2016 election.
Right.
Who can forget this?
I don't think anybody knows it was Russia that broke into the DNC. She's saying Russia, 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 but maybe it was. I mean, it could be Russia, but it could also be China. It could also be lots of other people. It also could be somebody sitting on their bed that weighs 400 pounds, okay? You don't know who broke in to DNC.
We do know it was Russia. U.S. intelligence officials have been very public about that and provided ample evidence.
You know, the president thinks he's a stand-up comic is what it is. He just loves the waves of laughter that roll over him. He loves the, chanting. He loves the, audience involvement. He likes to, say things like, who's going to pay for the wall? Who's going to pay for the wall? Yeah. He likes that. He likes the Mexico thing. He likes audience participation. He just, he doesn't understand, and he will never understand what his role truly is as the president of these United States. He has no clue. He doesn't want to know. He couldn't care less if somebody sat him down and told him about it, that his words affect the way that Americans interact with each other, that his words give permission to people who are so full of hate to go and now take action, illegal action, like to murder people, to, yesterday was the terrible commemoration of what happened to Heather Heyer. I won't call it a celebration or an anniversary because it's just the saddest occasion you could possibly imagine. It's today is the anniversary of him saying there were fine people on both sides, that there are some fine Nazis. America, you're going to have to pick a torch, either a tiki or Statue of Liberties. I'll go with her. I'm with her. But he has no clue. And if he did have a clue, he couldn't care less. And you cannot have a president who does not care about America or Americans or the rule of law that is America or the Constitution that is the foundation of everything that's possible in America. This is where we are. This is what we have. And we have a man who feeds these crazy people conspiracy theories over and over and over again, to the point where they're so disoriented that there is no talking to them. People call us crying because they can't talk to their mother. They can't talk to their father. They can't have Thanksgiving dinner anymore. They can't have a peaceful Christmas. They can't. Nothing is possible anymore because of the division, because of the waves of conspiracies and lies, and Rudy Giuliani being on television and saying the president didn't pay this woman. And if he did, it wouldn't be a crime. And, he didn't do. All of this, even Rudy Giuliani was telling the president to slow the F down on the Epstein conspiracy crap. Now you got an attorney general of the United States who decided previously that when Mueller released his report, which clearly did not exonerate the president, that he would he would sit on the report, tell the American people that it did exonerate the president, let it ripple through the population here in the United States of America for about 6 to 8 weeks, tell Mueller that he wasn't, really wanted, that he really don't want him to testify. And then finally, when you subpoena him and he testifies and he totally upends everything that Bill Barr said, when he totally annihilates Bill Barr's take on what is and isn't in that Mueller report, he moves on to the next conspiracy theory. And the next conspiracy theory is that he's going to get to the bottom of the Bureau of Prisons and what happened in that prison in Manhattan. Now, there are victims who are entitled to also know, But how much is ever going to be, released to them? How much Bill Barr is ever going to show them? How much suing is going to have to go on to get the information about, did anybody, there's got to be cameras outside of Epstein's cell. You would see whoever came in or out. You would see any guard that gave him a rope or sheets or whatever, right? You would see it on a camera. We don't know. We don't know if we'll ever see it. There was an autopsy that was done on Sunday, and to this minute, we don't know the result of that autopsy. Not because the results aren't in, but because they're suppressing it. And the medical examiner is saying she needs more information before she can actually put a cause of death on the death certificate, which means she has questions about whether or not this was suicide, it was, self-inflicted, how he did it, or if somebody helped. We're in sad shape here. We're in terrible shape. And you know what, of all the things that we just talked about, going after legal visa holders, green card holders, permanent resident holders, going after them for future use of hospitals without, the ability to pay the bill in full. I mean, this applies to every American, right? I mean, so this is just wild. This is wild. And until it actually affects the people in Kentucky and West Virginia and Mississippi and South Carolina, where the check is all they get every month. It's like the public assistance that goes out to these red states. I mean, the blue states totally support the red states. That's just a fact. That's why blue states' taxes are so much higher than red state taxes, is because it's progressive. If you can't afford to pay, you pay, and then they redistribute it to the people who need it the most in the form of disability checks or EBT cards. And, most people, that get these, they're white people. Just want you to know that. That's what the facts will show. But until it hits them, there is no talking to them. But the freaking scariest of all the things we're facing, did you see that there was this DEF CON voter village where hackers who work for corporate America and, try to expose any openings in, corporate America's websites or pay platforms, where that they were invited to hack into the voting machines? Did you see that? We're in trouble.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Okay, watch this. This is video footage from DEF CON Voter Village, where hackers were all assembled to hack into various voting systems that are deployed in the United States. This is just freaky. Okay.
DEF CON Voting Village is the only third-party independent assessment team of voting machines, as far as we know, in the entire world. So people come here to really kick the wheels, figure out exactly how these machines work, what the vulnerabilities are, so we can make more secure elections.
Yeah, there's a million different ways to interact with this thing.
Just kind of exploring what's going on with printing.
This is the AccuVote TSX. It's used in 18 different states, 8 of which are swing states.
She was able to break in minutes without tools.
Rebooting, and you're going to see that it's having trouble rebooting because there's no card reader. And now you have full admin access on this machine.
Oh my God.
You can disrupt the election. You can disrupt people's confidence in the election. When you think about admin access, you can think about like keys to the castle. When you have admin access, you own the machine. You can get it to do what you want it to do.
Yep.
So you can imagine that being very nefarious.
U.S. elections are so complex that we humans cannot do a manual count. We are dishonest and we are error prone. So we have to use machines while we know that the machines are hackable. So now the question is, we use the machine and now we verify the results by doing a risk limiting audit, and this is where you know that the machine didn't cheat. But you cannot trust machine as a paper ballot.
Oh boy. That's what happened in Georgia. No paper backup, no paper ballot. And that is what Mitch McConnell is fighting tooth and nail against that and background checks, right? So the Senate Majority Leader has repeatedly blocked any election protection bills. There are 2 bills that have passed the House that are they're sitting on his desk. They're ready to be voted upon. He will not introduce them. And every election security expert, every hacker, and hackers are, they could be good people, or are you a good hacker or a bad hacker? Well, these are the good hackers. These are CEOs of companies that purposely look at, machines to see what their vulnerabilities are, to protect your information on behalf of a bank, or your information on behalf of a pay platform, or your information on behalf of Equifax, who failed miserably. Get your $125, everybody. Get your $125. But it's stupid to have the view that America has the right to poor election systems, right? And that is what we're arguing. Mitch McConnell said, Americans have the right to vote on crappy machines that can flip votes. Americans have the right to vote on machines that can be manipulated depending on who has admin access. Now, admin, I know this because I run my own website to learn all this stuff, but when you have admin access, when you're on the back end of anything, and you are the administrator of that platform, and I'm saying this for people who have absolutely no idea what goes on to run a website, to protect people's information, to hire somebody to sit on that fence and make sure everyone who is giving any information to you as a company is protected. Let me tell you something. Whoever has admin access to your particular host, to your machine, can make that machine do whatever it wants. It's like that old thing from My Big Fat Greek Wedding where, she sits there and she says, oh, yeah, the man is in charge of anything. But the man is like the head and the woman is the neck. And she could turn the head any way she wants it. That's what admin access is. It's the neck, and it can turn the head any way you want it to turn. So here's another sickening clip, okay? This is from NBC. This is Jacob Ward, who actually went a little deeper into this DEF CON voter village. And you know what else? You know what he exposes in this particular little piece here, this little videotape? He exposes the fact that the voting machine companies, who, by the way, are like gun manufacturers, they have immunity from lawsuits. Did you know that? Yeah. You can't sue Diebold. You can't sue ES&S. You can't sue voting machines, and you can't sue Colt. You can't sue a gun manufacturer. This is what the moneyed elite do in this country to protect their interests over ours. But Jacob Ward actually exposes the fact that they wanted ES&S and Diebold and others to donate machines, and the hackers would go to work on the machines, and then they would report back to these voting systems companies and tell them, you got a problem here, you got a problem there, this is a problem. They wouldn't allow their machines to be looked at. So the hackers had to purchase the machines off of eBay, which means 2 things. 1, you can buy a voting machine on eBay. And 2, these companies have absolutely no interest in safe and free and fair elections.
What was so interesting was I assumed coming into it that the big manufacturers, companies like ES&S and Dominion, had provided these machines to the hackers to, field test them. But no, it turns out there's an extremely hostile relationship there, and that ES&S and Dominion and other companies have basically said we don't want to participate, and really have been quite aggressive in saying we don't want to be part of this. So the organizers were reduced to finding these machines on eBay. Which right there is pretty terrifying, because it turns out that anybody can buy some of the most common machines in use on eBay. What was really alarming was when you see these hackers, and these are people who've never seen these machines before, have had no practice on them for the most part, come in and engage them, they immediately get into the guts of them. Beyond that, we were seeing Dominion's image cast system. It's a line of tabulators that paper ballots are fed into. That had its guts all over the room. It was not clear to us whether this was the most recent version of the image cast hardware, But it's important to know that Georgia just spent over is about to spend over $100 million on a contract with Dominion to provide ImageCast hardware to the state in time for the for the next primaries and for the 2020 election. And yet here these kids were who had opened it up. They said, look, you can pop the front off of it, and here's a port you can get into right here. That's easy. You know, all kinds of stuff that you could certainly do within 6 minutes behind a curtain. 6 minutes. Much less if you had extra time, because any of these were connected to the web, as we discovered a couple of days before. So many of them are. So at the end of the event, Voting Village issues a report, and so we'll be expecting one from them, and they're very transparent about it. I mean, the spirit of this event was transparency, trying to get these vulnerabilities out into the world so that I guess the idea is that the companies will be forced to correct them in some way. The front of each machine was a little post-it that showed off what had been found out by the various hackers. So at one point, you know, the admin password was just sitting there on there, because it turns out that the same admin password applies to multiple machines across the room. And those machines were created in the 2000s, which means that they were in fact created so you can't change that admin password. They're just locked for all time in that way. There does not seem to be any political momentum on some of the bills that are under consideration right now around trying to keep these machines off the internet, or trying to establish some sort of certifiable ballot, paper ballot system, or any of the other things that have been proposed.
Holy crap.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
So obviously we have a problem in this country. We have a couple of problems in this country with regard to voting. And that is only half of the eligible voters in this country actually vote. That's a huge one. But perhaps it's because they feel like their votes don't count, and that's the second one. The second problem is that sometimes we're voting into the ether. We're just voting into nowhere. We don't know what happened with Georgia and Stacey Abrams because we couldn't do a recount because there's no paper backup ballot. There's no paper. We have no earthly idea. And so obviously Mitch McConnell has two bills, that election protection bill, sitting on his doorstep, and he won't introduce them. Because apparently he thinks that the way things are benefits him remaining the majority leader. And why would that be? Because in 2020, there are a lot of seats that are in play in his beloved freaky Senate. You got Lindsey Graham, who's being challenged by a Democrat named Jamie Harrison. You've got Cory Gardner in Colorado, who's up. You got Martha McSally in Arizona, who's being challenged by the astronaut Mark Kelly. Tom Tillis in North Carolina, he's on the ballot. Susan Collins in Maine got a challenger. Her name's Sarah Gideon. That could flip. Now, in Georgia, where there are no paper ballots, you got David Perdue on the ballot, right? You got Senator Perdue. You got Cindy Hyde-Smith in Mississippi, the one that likes to take her photo in Confederate Army caps. The one who blocks everything with her single, I don't want to do it. Mitch McConnell is on the ballot. And Amy McGrath, who is a combat fighter pilot veteran, who he literally threatened on Twitter by putting her name on tombstones, had his Twitter feed halted because Mitch McConnell's orifice literally violated the terms of use that Twitter has with regard to threatening other people. They finally restored his Twitter feed because they probably figured he doesn't know what he's doing. It's his staff, whatever, over here. They restored it, right? But Amy McGrath, she had her name put on tombstones at a McConnell event, and that was tweeted out by his account. John Cornyn in Texas, Beto, please go home to Texas. They need you so bad there. One thing I noticed about Beto is very, 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 very comfortable. He is very expressive and very comfortable and very articulate and very informed when it comes to talking about Texas's issues. When you ask Beto about, grander things, like federal, he's not as committed. He's not as passionate, let's say, as when he's talking about El Paso or when he's talking about Texas or when he's talking about issues that affect Texans, primarily. I say, look, Beto, go home to Texas and put up a challenge to John Cornyn. I really believe Texas is in play. I think the whole state is in play. I know that there are at least 6 House seats that are in play. So, and lots of 6 Texas Republicans have retired because they know they don't have a chance. Will Hurd, who is, the Republican from Texas, I think he's the only black Republican in the House. Tim Scott is the only black Republican in the Senate, and I don't think Tim Scott is going to run for re-election. Of course, that doesn't happen until 2022, so he's got time to think on it. But you got John Cornyn in play in Texas, and I think Beto is the right guy. I really do. So please consider, being a Democratic nominee for, I don't even think there'd be a primary for that particular position to run against Senator John Cornyn in Texas, who Cornyn and Trump are the darkness reaching out to the darkness. I believe I tweeted that the other day. And I asked Beto to please consider running for the Senate. Then all of a sudden today, there's editorials. Beto, go home, go run for, a Senate seat, go run against John Cornyn. Thank you. I hope he hears me. I really do. Joni Ernst, who likes to, castrate pigs is her hobby and stuff. She likes that. And she also said she was raped in the Air Force, but doesn't want to do anything about Air Force rape. I don't know. She's, in Iowa. She's on the ballot this year. And then we have to protect a couple of Senate seats. We have to protect Doug Jones in Alabama against the likes of Roy Moore again. And we have to protect Tina Smith in Minnesota, who took Al Franken's seat, because now she's on the ballot, and we have to protect that seat. So, there's a big chance that we could take the Senate if our votes are counted. And that is the big if. Texas has 38 electoral votes. 38! Florida has 29, but Texas got 38. 38. That's a game changer. So you think that they don't know where to concentrate their admin access? You think they don't know where, they should concentrate their efforts in voter suppression? Or you think they don't know? Of course they know. And this is something everyone's got to wake up to and be alert. And look, I was watching the airport in Hong Kong today. Did you see those protests? Those were they ended ugly. But those protests have been going on since June. You know why? Because in 1997, the British, who, ruled over Hong Kong, they gave Hong Kong their independence, right? And China decided Hong Kong was part of China, and they declared a one country, two systems policy, meaning Hong Kong is not communist. Mainland China, totally freaking they're commies. Whenever Donald Trump praises President Xi, he's praising a communist dictator. And so Hong Kong is facing the erosion of their democracy. Xi wants to take over Hong Kong and limit civil liberties. He wants to take away their right to protest. He wants to have extradition so that people who are charged in Hong Kong with any crime could be extradited to China, and he can make an example of them so people would be loath to say anything or do anything that is illegal in a communist system against Xi, right? And the same thing is happening in Taiwan, okay? So the Taiwanese, they have an election coming up too where they're going to vote on their independence, and Xi wants, he's conquering all these nations, okay? He wants Taiwan brought in under the communist umbrella. He wants Hong Kong brought in under the communist umbrella. And the young people there, okay, the kids there, and they are kids, they're like 18, mid-20s, early 30s. They have been sitting in at the airports and stuff like this since June to protest the erosion of their civil liberties. And China doesn't know what to do about it. Now, Donald Trump is, propping up Xi, the commie, over these kids in Hong Kong. But they got it down, man. They are organized. They know exactly what economic hubs to shut down by sitting down. I'm paying very, very close attention to their protests because they were peaceful until they weren't today. And that's because Xi is on the phone going, crush them. And Trump is right behind them.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
You know, we have to speak truth. Racism is real in this country. It was before he was elected. It will be after. Anti-Semitism, homophobia, transphobia, Islamophobia. These issues are real in our country, and we have to speak truth about it. And certainly, we must point out and never condone anyone who uses their power in a way that fans it.
Terrorist attack in El Paso was motivated in part by the president constantly warning of invasions and infestations and predators and Mexican immigrants who he described as rapists and criminals, though we know they commit crimes at a far lower rate than those who are born in this country. He's changing the conversation, and if we allow him to do that, then we will never be able to focus on the true problems of which he is a part.
If we have racism in our country, and we are all in this together, and we believe that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, what are you doing about that injustice? It's not enough to say I'm not a racist in America. If racism exists, you need to be anti-racist.
And we need to be much more aggressive than the Trump administration has in going after those people. So I am a strong civil libertarian. But on the other hand, I want to make sure that we do not see the rise of neo-fascism in this country, and that we understand that those white nationalists are, in fact, when they get involved in violence, they are terrorists, and they should be treated as terrorists.
And you support red flag laws?
Yes, I do.
All right, so this is some of the people that we are considering, right? These are some of the people, and they're all good. Elizabeth Warren is surging in Iowa. She is drawing mega crowds in Iowa. People are very, very excited by her. And, of course, Joe Biden is still at the top of the pack. So we have choices to make, obviously, and we're going to have to make them on voting machines that in some places have no paper backup. What could go wrong? We're in trouble. Susan in California.
Oh, hi, Randy. I wanted to talk about the impact, economic and otherwise, of immigrants.
Please do, yes.
Yeah, well, I'm an immigrant.
Where are you from?
And Canada. We came about 30 years ago, and we couldn't have passed the criteria that are being laid out now.
Yeah.
My husband, at the time, we were not married, but he had an HB1, I think it was, or HB2 visa.
Uh-huh.
And they were not going to pay him enough that would satisfy the new limits that they're putting on. And I was not, as I say, a doctor, lawyer, Indian chief, so I was, I guess I was an undesirable.
Oh,
because,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, I'm good for office work, that kind of thing, but I couldn't have gotten an HB visa of any kind at the time, and so I dedicated myself to doing volunteer work, and I still do, even though I'm a citizen now. And but in the volunteer work I do now, I consistently see people from other countries stepping up and participating more so than native-born people, and it, as I say, consistently, I'm seeing this, and so there's the impact that they have, which may be part of the reason that the administration doesn't want them coming in, because they actually
well, this is about people that are already in.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the sickest part. We're talking here today about legal immigration. We're talking about, and he keeps making these pronouncements to his minions, saying, we love legal immigration. People that come in legally, we love them. But bullcrap, because this is literally targeting the elderly. It's targeting young people who are not yet ready to work. It's targeting people with illnesses, chronic illnesses, diabetes, cancer, people who are, I don't know how they're going to decide that you're likely to get into a car accident, but this is ridiculous. This is Orwellian beyond Orwell. This is something Orwell didn't even think of, is predicting the future likelihood. This is off the hook. So,
the other thing,
what are we going to do with people who came in here legally and are now, 75 years old? They've worked in this country their whole lives. They're green card holders, and they've paid into Social Security. So now it's time for them to take Social Security. And because they were here legally, they're entitled to it. But that's a government benefit according to this rule. So do you deport them?
Well, that's actually interesting, because that was another point I wanted to bring up, was that you used to talk about how many billions of dollars undocumented workers would put into the system. And I was just looking it up, and there's one number I've seen around 12 billion, and I've seen 20 billion, and I imagine that the discrepancy has to do with sales taxes and that kind of thing versus payroll taxes and Social Security. And the other point you used to make was how they're wanting to undermine Social Security, and this is a way to do it. By taking away the people who are frankly bolstering it because they're putting in and not taking out. This is another leg of the stool being kicked out from under the Social Security program.
Yeah, and I just don't want people to confuse the undocumented people who do pay into Social Security. Some of them have tax ID numbers, and they use that. Others have, fake Social Security cards, and so some of those people are paying into somebody else's Social Security trust fund, right? But they're paying in with people who are here legally, who are now eligible for Social Security because they've worked here legally. And according to this new rule, those people also have to go.
Right. Well, and I was just reading that in not sure if it was 15 or 18, there were 4.5 million tax returns that did not even have a Social Security number on them, let alone a bogus one. They did not even have a Social Security number. 4.5 million.
Well, I don't know what you were reading, but people who pay, who are undocumented, they are given ID numbers to pay their taxes, and they do.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I know. You can look up on Google, how do I pay an undocumented worker?
Right.
And there's also you get a lot of returns on that one simple question.
Right, but that's for the employer. I'm talking about the worker.
I know.
A worker who is undocumented still is issued a tax ID number so that they can pay their taxes,
they can pay in,
even though they're not entitled to any refund that might be due or any benefits that they may have paid for, like Social Security, like disability, like Medicare, Medicaid. That's the sick, dirty little underbelly. So everybody goes, well, they're not here legally, so they don't pay taxes. I mean, how would they do it? That's how they do it. That's how they do it. They're given tax ID numbers so that they could and do pay their taxes. Sick. Going after people who pay their taxes. How about going after people who don't pay taxes? How about going after these billionaires that somehow, with 1 million accountants on the whole 6th floor, find a way not to pay any taxes on billions of dollars in profits? Why are you not worried or concerned about how they are depleting the Treasury? Why doesn't that bother you? Why are you so concerned with an undocumented worker who does pay taxes? Kenny in New York.
Yeah, how you doing, Randy?
How you doing?
Hanging in there.
All right.
Hey, let me ask you. I'm not sure if I understood what you were saying or not, but I have a friend. I mentioned him to you a long time ago, and he's a permanent resident since like the early '80s, and worked all for a long time while he was here and everything. But in the last few years, he's been in and out of the hospital because of, things that I thought he was diabetic, but he's not. But he's been in and out of the hospital. And
does he have health insurance?
No, he's on Medicaid.
Oh yeah. No, he's on the list. Yes, for deportation.
So they are applying it for even people that are.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Is there any way that you could put that in the homework? So
it is in the homework. It absolutely is in the homework today. So just go to.
Okay.
I don't know if you subscribe to the homework. That's
I do. I have it.
Okay.
But
then,
I couldn't find it.
Oh no, it's there. It's definitely in the homework. What did we call it today? Do you know the article? Just so that he has it. It's definitely in there.
Okay,
All
I'll
right.
find it.
Okay, and if
Thank
not,
you.
I'll post it again tomorrow. But it's definitely in there. I know I put it in there. Scotty's looking for it, but it's in there. It's definitely in there. Definitely. It's definitely in there. Wapna. No, they have no authority to do this. That's the main thing to know. It hasn't gone into effect yet. October 15th is the target date, but there will be lawsuits.